Hello, welcome to this week's episode of Soundtrack of Your Life, the place where you get to share your stories about how music in your life has interspersed with moments, events, times, peoples, scenarios, whatever the case may be. We all love stories, we've all got stories to share, so this is exactly the show for you to do that. My guest on this week's show is Taniya Hussain. Taniya has been in my network for a little while now, but we've never actually connected properly on either a project or initiative, whatever. We've just been in and around each other's network, helping each other in terms of commenting on posts and posting and all that stuff. And Taniya shared that she would love to be a guest on the show, given her background in music and dance and just enjoying it. And what follows is a fascinating and somewhat deep conversation at times about how music has evolved through the years, Taniya's own journey into songwriting, and she actually shares a couple of her pieces on the show, which is well worth a listen in itself. And where technology combines with music nowadays, and do bands have influences as much anymore, and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, rather than me previewing it too much for you, have a listen or have a watch. And if you want to be on the show, just let me know via the link below. We'll connect and sort your time out to get you onto the show as well. So without further ado, enjoy the show and feel supersonic. Hello, welcome everybody to this week's episode of Soundtrack of Your Life. You know the score now, I'm not going to go through the whole massive long story. This is just where you get to share stories about what's gone in your life, what's going on in your life, and how it intersperses with music. We've all got stories, so come along and share them. And this week, after a while of talking in the comments and on posts, finally, Taniya and I are sharing this space for Taniya to share exactly all about her stories with music. So just a bit of background on Taniya to make sure I get all this right. She's been a social worker for 35 years and qualified at the age of 22. She's given a lot in her life, probably overgiving maybe a little, but throughout the time, music and dance and song, and also writing poetry and stories has been a way for her to express, give to herself. And in fact, dance features a lot in her new international best-selling book, Dancing with Darkness, which is available on Amazon for you to go and check out and get involved with. So, Taniya, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. Yes, I'm really excited about this.
No worries. I always say to the guests, to be honest, this goes where you want to. So wherever you would like to start from, whichever story, whichever song, you're welcome to do so.
So I feel like I really do need to start off with this song that I actually discovered actually has really, really helped people and is now used in therapy. So it was a song written by Tim Buckley, and I came across the version recorded by This Mortal Coil in the 1980s, sung by Elizabeth Fraser of the Cocteau Twins.
Okay.
And I used to listen, I'm sure you did as well, Vishad. I used to listen to a lot of the John Peel sessions.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I used to listen to a lot of Radio 1, and I can't remember, but I remember just listening to Song to the Siren. And in those days, those were the days where you couldn't, find the internet was like not as readily available as it is now. You couldn't find like lyrics, like to the songs.
Yeah.
You had to kind of work it out. And the way that Liz Fraser like sings the songs, her voice and everything, you can't exactly understand what that song is saying. But that song really helped me. I think 16, something like that. Between the ages of 16 and 18, that song was something just that held me, that comforted me, that like just kind of connected me to a spiritual realm that, and I didn't really understand the lyrics. And I listened to this documentary, I think it's on BBC Sound, um, literally about how this song has helped people, prevented people from suicide, how it's used with a lot of like men's groups, and the actual history of the song when Tim Buckley, why he wrote it and how he wrote it, and him also singing it. And I literally, when I was listening to this documentary, was literally crying because the way that song helped me was before things like music therapy, dance therapy, song therapy were even a thing.
Wow.
And this was before I decided to become a social worker, and this is before I just, trained as a therapist. And I think I was already a fan of Elizabeth Fraser and the Cocteau Twins. I think I came across the Cocteau Twins before I came across Song to the Siren. And I remember actually listening to This Mortal Coil and that particular that particular album when I was actually giving birth with my first
Oh,
and second.
wow.
It
What
was
time
in
to think of it.
it was in the background, and 4AD
Oh,
was like the independent like record label. I was very much into indie music, and so it's literally, I would say it's probably my favorite song of all time. And it's really funny. I have a friend who is a doctor. She's a GP, and I kind of introduced her to this song, and so she used to like sing it to her children as a lullaby. And she really loves like this song, and she is one that told me about this documentary. And I feel like this song has helped so many people in difficult times. And I would say, yeah, if there was any song that's really like my all-time favorite song, it would be that song.
is there anything particular about the song itself, though,
Well,
for you?
the actual song is actually about ships and like hope and death, and it's really deep.
Right.
And when Tim Buckley kind of like wrote it, and his version is really like, it just touches your soul, and it just gives you hope amongst a lot of darkness.
I like
That's
that.
yeah.
That's really powerful. When you're right. It feels like there's only certain um, songs and moments that inspire that kind of deep. I always call it like my favorite artists talk about the universal truth, a
Yeah.
universal truth in song where like the interpretation is left up to the person, but yet that interpretation goes so deep at first listening, it stays with you. You don't need to listen to it again and again. It just gets you in, and it stays with you for long periods of your life.
and
Yeah.
and listening to it now and kind of understanding why he wrote it and how he wrote it, and listening to him actually sing it basically, for me, it was like God holding me
Wow.
holding me,
Wow.
because I was extremely, like, I was going through a lot and I was on my own, and that song literally held me.
I think I found the hook of the show. So I know before the show I always ask guests again to curate a playlist which they get to share with people afterwards, just to just share music, right? I know there were a lot of personal choices in there. You're welcome to share more about those selections if you'd like to.
Yeah, so I feel it, in my book that I've written, Dancing with Darkness, Madonna's featured
Nice.
in the book, like she's mentioned a few times in the book.
Mm.
Because the central character, she's a fictional character, Tamara, kind of grew up on her music. She was born in 1970. This was a fictional character that I channeled. And obviously, Madonna was like a huge, like, I feel like Madonna has been somebody that's been in my life, and her music has defined certain chapters of my life. And I remember listening to like Madonna's like first album, like Everybody and Holiday and Borderline. And what was really interesting, I was listening to Borderline again recently, and what was really weird was like the lyrics seemed to be foretelling my future.
Oh wow! What kind of
And
lyric?
like the lyric is like, you keep pushing me, my love, to to the borderline. And I feel like if I'd really listened to the lyrics carefully and understood like that she was like helping me for the future, and like kind of taken them a bit more seriously, I kind of would have learned a lot more. Um and so Madonna's songs, Borderline, Vogue, Live to Tell, Like a Prayer, they are kind of really representative of things that I was going through, have been through. And they're kind of like what you were kind of saying. Some songs are kind of just universal, like
Mm.
she's written them with whatever she was kind of like going through. I know she's had her own issues to do with the Catholic Church and everything else, and are kind of pushing the boundaries a little bit. And some of them are like a bit semi-autobiographical, some are like fictitious, but she's an icon, she's a legend in her own right. But her songwriting, I feel, isn't given that kind of credit that
Mm.
like other artists get,
Mm.
you know. And I know some of the songs, what she's recorded aren't her own, but Live to Tell, I would say, is something that has really helped me. And in a way, I think I kind of have told what I wanted to tell by writing my book, Dancing with Darkness.
So you're kind of using the book to kind of a form of self-expression,
Yeah,
mixing in the music as well.
yes. And also, um, like, I feel like some artists kind of come into your life and you get inspired by them because it's kind of like a synchronicity.
Oh yes.
It's like God and the universe conspiring to, like that, that particular song comes up on the radio, right? Or it's in the background and you walk into a coffee bar or like a pub or whatever.
Mm.
And it's like you're meant to hear it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
the song could have been playing anywhere else at any other time. Yeah, at that moment in time, I would say it's like it comes along to rescue you almost.
Yes. And it's kind of like what happened to me yesterday. Yesterday, I went to see. It was only on one night. It was a play called "The Black Is the Color of My Voice," and it's a fictional version
Oh,
of Nina Simone's life. It's a fictional because the character is Nina Bordeaux, and it's a one-woman play where
wow.
she sings a lot of the Nina Simone songs. And I was literally in the theatre, Garrick Theatre, last night, watching this. It was only they're touring, but it's only one night in London. Act theatre, and literally nearly every single song that was sung on that stage last night, I felt resonated with what's going on in my life, and
Mm.
that's a message for me.
What made you book a ticket in the first place?
I again, it was like I just kind of saw it on I saw it on Facebook, and literally, usually I see a lot of things on Facebook. It doesn't mean I
Yeah.
always book stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Literally, I was like, I need to go and see this. I didn't even know it was only on for one night. And I
Mm.
was like, he just pulled me to that theatre show.
Mm.
And I usually go with somebody. I actually went by myself. First time I've been to a theatre show by myself. I usually go with a family member or a friend. But like literally, I didn't care. I just wanted to go. And again, like her music, Nina Simone, Ella Fitzgerald, not so much Billie Holiday. I mean, I listened to a little bit of Billie Holiday. I loved like listening to all the jazz greats, John Coltrane. I love Supreme, Louis Armstrong. I used to listen to a lot of all that kind of jazz. For me has always been what I would say like eternal music. It's like music for eternity, and jazz is jazz dancing, jazz music. That whole genre has always given me joy. I think that would be probably the best way to describe it. Given me
Wow.
joy.
I really like that. It's when music's able to bring out those kind of emotions and what's going on inside you. It's like the resonance is one of, I think, one of the strongest things we can experience, because in that regard we've made whatever piece of music that is personalized to us. No one else will get it in the same manner that we do, or for the same reasons or stories that we do.
Yeah, and also like jazz. I remember, I think it was in the 90s, I went to Kenwood. I'm sure you've been to Kenwood in Hampstead, to one the jazz festival there. And then I remember listening to, I think it was the River Thames. I think, yeah, River Thames, Tower Bridge, I think someone near there. Elaine Delmar, like listening to her like perform live. And like jazz music live has just a different edge, a different like there's live music and then there's like listening to a recording.
Yeah.
And I don't have very many regrets in my life. I hardly have any regrets, right? There's one regret I have where I remember, this is before the internet, but my friends were like talking that they wanted to go and see Ella Fitzgerald, like
Mm.
perform live. I think she was coming to London or something. And I kind of like thought about it, then I just didn't like kind of inquire a little bit, and then that opportunity was gone. And like I just kind of think, Tanya, you could have gone to see Ella Fitzgerald and you missed out.
No.
And like for me, that's why on my playlist I put down Ray. And Ray for me is she kind of, I really love her music, and she's written was it 21st Century Blues? And like songs in that album I can really kind of like relate to. But also she's also from South London. She's from Tooting. She grew up in Tooting. So I'm like a Tooting girl. The central character of my book is also from Southwest London. Tooting kind of like features in my book. But like Ray for me is kind of like just seeing her just like rise and bloom, and like she's like now this, like she's brought jazz and blues back to life. And she had a hard time trying to like just lots of people said stick with another genre, but she has made it modern. I'm not saying other artists haven't, but I feel like she's given that new generation kind of an understanding of jazz and blues, which people kind of didn't really have. Like, some of the sort of like I've got kids between the ages of 18 and 29. And all of them are kind of into jazz, maybe because I am, but I was a real jazz freak.
Wow. So you mentioned like the difference between a live recording and a studio recording. Well, I say live recording, so when you go experience the music live, what are the key differences for you?
I'm going to speak from experience,
Mm,
okay?
mm.
So I recently went September 2025. I went for my first ever live concert in Wembley, never been before. Okay,
Stadium.
yes, but
Okay.
Wembley
All
to
right.
see Coldplay,
Nice. Nice.
right? And I went with my youngest son, who's an actor, who's into music, who's like now into really kind of he's BAFTA young presenter. He's kind of wanting to do like music journalism, film journalism as well.
Nice.
And I went with him. It was his birthday present, and like Coldplay. That was a good bet to kind of watch Coldplay like live, like my first Wembley kind of
Mm-hmm.
music live tour.
Sure.
That's a good band to see, right? So now, if I listen to Coldplay, okay, it's good, but it's not as good when
Yeah.
you're seeing it live and you're sharing that experience with other people. I think that's what makes it. It's not just that the band are like live, it's the fact that it's like a community
Yeah.
experience. Does that make any sense?
100%. And Coldplay are probably one of the best bands to cultivate that kind of thing.
Yeah. And again, I remember like being at Wembley and like people have come from like far, like
Oh yeah.
Brazil, Argentina, the other side of the world. And I'm like, you come all that way. And like, there's just me coming from South London to North London. It's like,
Yeah.
wasn't that much of a trek.
Yeah.
And like, again, like people speaking different languages, but like that music is what brought them. The music is what brought them. And that's why feel like music kind of connects you to other people and the
Mm.
artists, but it also connects you to previous versions of yourself.
Self. Yeah. Yeah.
And it makes you like travel in time.
Oh, absolutely.
And there's like some music that kind of travels with you. And on my playlist, I'm sure there's Thomas Lang, and I think I shared Scallywag Jazz. He's a Liverpudlian. I say he's jazz. He's like modern jazz. I'm sure that's on like my playlist. And Scallywag Jazz is a tune. It's hardly got any lyrics. It's got lyrics at the end. But I remember like listening to it, and I feel this was in my 20s, and I feel like I met my future self while listening to it. And I used to listen to it to like help me sleep. I used to kind of listen to it because it gave me joy. And then I remember in my student days, I studied at Coventry Poly social work. He came to perform to a
Wow.
student. It was more of an intimate, like, I think maybe there was about 40, 50 people seated. It wasn't like a big venue. And I think probably that was probably although it was an intimate venue, I remember just listening to him. And I think he's still like I think he just kind of like plays more locally now. I think it's The Happy Man. That was his kind of track that kind of made it into the top 40 I think it was in the late 80s. And I was listening to The Happy Man again, and I was kind of, again, it felt like these are lyrics that are like foretelling my life, listening to them again. So I kind of don't know, that's just like really, for me, it kind of gives me chills, and it also gives me like God has a real sick sense of humor.
All
a
these
little, a
signs are
little bit,
following you around.
a little bit of both, but like jazz, modern jazz, um, has really kind of like helped me kind of connect me to like before I was married, before I had kids, like connecting me to the maiden. And that's why I love on the playlist, I think, Fairground Attraction and the voice of Eddie Reader. I love A Smile in a Whisper. Um, in Fairground Attractions, a first, I think it's a First of a Million Kisses, I think that's what it's called. And literally there's another track on that album called The Moon Is Mine. The moon is mine. And I actually wrote a song similar to that. I think it was inspired by,
Nice.
I don't know if you want to hear it.
Of course we do. It's your show. Feel
Oh,
free.
thank you. I don't know if I'm going to be brave enough to sing it, so
Whatever you'd like. Whatever you're comfortable with.
hey, the moon is mine, the moon is mine, the moon shines. It asks me, are you fine? I answer, you moon are mine. Remember the vow I made, remember the moonlight vow. I remember the when, do you remember the how? How you sealed my fate with a smile, how you sealed my fate with a kiss. I knew then I would be okay, because you shone your light even in the depths of the darkness. Your moonlight was there, the stars sparkled with you, making the dark night a blanket for my soul, making a mirror for me, being a mirror to what was inside, knowing within I would survive. You moon are mine, you moon are mine. You shine when I shine, you smile when I smile, you shine when I don't, you smile when I don't. You light the darkness, you light my soul. You ask me if I'm fine, and I say, I am, because you gave me a promise, you gave me a hope. You sealed my heart with a fragrance, a romance, a tale that needs to be told. You, moon, are part of my soul. You may be in the sky, other lovers might try to say you're theirs, but you, moon, are mine. The moon is mine. You, moon, are mine. You ask me if I'm fine as you shine. I could scream a scream, howl a howl. Instead, I smile, but you smiled at me all those years ago. You said, Tanya, I'll be yours, I'll be yours. So, hey, world, lay off the moon. It ain't yours. The moon is mine. The moon is mine. The moon is mine. And it's inspired by Fairground Attractions. Songs
Really
and movies.
nice. Really personal. Really evocative. And you said you wrote it as a song, so have you put music to it yourself, or?
I'm not a musician. I'm more of a songwriter.
Okay.
I probably collaborate with a musician. So kind of like,
Have you
just
done that before? Like collaborated?
um nearly. So
Oh,
because
nearly.
I'm not
Okay.
nearly, and so I have a friend who is a violinist.
Okay.
And I'm wanting to collaborate with her. She plays concerts.
All right.
Because she's got the musical ear, I've got the lyrics, and it feels like I need somebody that knows the music because I can write, but it's kind of getting the melodies right.
Do you have an idea in your head of what it should sound like?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
What what
usually.
what would this song sound like?
I don't know. I don't know. I've got another one,
Okay.
which was on my playlist. It
Okay.
was Yesterday I kind of put that Yesterday by the Beatles was really something that I love like listening to. I do love the Beatles, but then I kind of got my own version, and I might be brave enough to
Go
sing it
on.
for you.
This will be good. This will be good.
Yesterday, all my troubles looked like they were here to stay. Now they look like far away.
Mm.
Oh, how I do not believe in yesterday. Yesterday, I was not the woman I was meant to be. Now I know my destiny. Today I stand with integrity. I'm evolving to find me. And suddenly I feel the joy. I'm not a victim of a ploy. Suddenly the sorrow is buried in a parallel tomorrow. And I experience not the pain, but serendipitous serenity. I find the love within me, for me, and I embrace my strength and vulnerability. Suddenly, the caterpillar becomes the butterfly, and I learn how to fly. I'm now the woman I want to be. Oh, how I believe in me today. How I celebrate me today. Suddenly, the future has a glow, and hope always shows. Yesterday seems so far away. Despite my pain and sorrow, I no longer live in yesterday. Regrets do not consume me. I embrace today in its depth, in its width, in its rage, in its angst, in its joy. It is after all the choices of today that help me loosen the grip of yesterday. Yesterday, oh, how I bid you goodbye and say hello to the vibrant me, myself, and I.
Wow. It's like, it sounds like yesterday's sequel. Because, like, the original, it seems to be more backward looking, more like, a bit of regret. Well, a fair bit of regret in there,
Yeah,
staying in there. But yours is still reflect, like, observing all that, but focusing on what's ahead,
yeah.
and
I
still
might,
using.
I might, I might meet, maybe I collaborate with Paul McCartney
I was
on
going to
the
say, reach out to
revelation.
Paul, saying, reach out to Ringo and Paul, and saying, look, lads, I've got yesterday's sequel. If you fancy it. Yeah. Again, in your head, do you does it sound a certain way to you?
It sounds like the original, like the the
Mm,
Beatles
mm,
yesterday.
mm,
Like the tune is that, but I don't. I think it's probably again needs to be tuned to that tune for it to sound like that, or it might need a different tune. So in my head, I have things like playing, and I I feel like I didn't ever have a musical ear, but I feel like I don't know if this is true, but I feel intrinsically it probably is. I feel like all of us are musical, but some of us, it's really buried deep.
mm.
Yeah. And we need to kind of just open ourselves up to it. Because I always thought, like, like when I dance off beat. Probably when I mean, I'm not a singer, I'm not a professional singer. Um, so I have a tune in my head and I then just kind of like go with it. And that song kind of came out and I've kind of worked on it. But it literally, from a very young age, when I was going through difficulties, I find myself like walking and songs come to me, and I just like start singing them. And some of it is just for me, like
Mm,
to
mm.
help me process whatever difficulties I'm going through personally. Um, and I've kind of done that a lot. I think I grew up in a household. My dad was very much into Urdu poetry. He was a poet himself. I grew up on like Bollywood music. My dad was the one that took me to my first musical theatre show. I think it was 42nd Street, and I fell in love with musical theatre. I used to watch all like the musicals. And I remember at a very young age, I remember watching like West Side Story, and it's like, wow, so I kind of always grew up on like music, Bollywood music, Hollywood music, listening to his records, my dad's records, like Baez. I mean, I kind of was listening to 60s music, although I was a teenager in the 80s.
Wow. I mean, you're right in terms of like, um, everybody having that innate ability to express. Like, it's interesting when you use the word professional singer. Well, you only turn, I think, professional when you want to go down that avenue of like, okay, I can. Well, today it seems more like, how can I monetize this? There's all.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, like, I feel like there's certain things that I like to monetize,
Yeah.
like my writing, right? But like for me, like if I just feel like me singing, I just want to do that for myself.
Absolutely.
Me, like, there's one dream that I have, like getting into a recording studio and just recording for myself.
That's
And
doable.
sometimes I feel like, and it's very doable, like, and I feel like sometimes when you do something for yourself,
Mm.
it, I don't know, it just, I'm not saying if you do it and monetize it, there's no joy, but for me, it just, I don't know, it feels a bit more cleaner. It just feels, I don't know, that's probably the best word. It feels a bit more cleaner, feels a bit more purer. I don't know why. I think there's a certain creativity that, but even with writing, sometimes if you kind of write for yourself
Mm.
rather than write for an audience, it then flows. I mean, that's what happened with my book, Dancing with Darkness. I kind of stopped writing for an audience. I was
Yeah.
writing for myself.
Well, it's funny you mention that, because there's a lot of truth in what you say of when you're in a studio environment to create something for an audience, then along the way, in the recording moment, like as you're recording, it feels you because it's your writing, you've written it, but then that edit, that copy, gets chopped and changed around so many times
Mm,
by other people along the way that I've got no idea with how you felt when you're writing it, or how you expressing it or putting it together, because they're
mm,
about how do we rinse the money out of this thing. So,
yeah,
an auto tune here or a tweak there and this kind of thing, especially in today's thing, whereas the point I was saying about monetizing the creativity, it's literally like, right, let's bleed this thing dry. Whereas I think the artists from probably the 90s backwards has been
yes,
like, has been in tune with what you were saying a lot. I create the music for me, and if other people happen to join along, it's a bonus. Now, it just happens to be that they had the followers in their millions, in the sense of like so many people clicked on, like you mentioned yesterday, and I just looked up, I remember Paul McCartney and the story about how he wrote yesterday of like, well, it was in a dream, and he had
yeah,
to go and ask everybody else next morning. He asked like John, George and Ringo, going, is this your song? And all of them went like, I've got no idea what you're talking about. This is
mm,
not something we've worked on, not something anyone else has
mm,
referred to. This is you. And Paul's like,
mm.
no, I'm sure I've heard this somewhere. It's like one of it, but I love it. It's like it is probably one of the most iconic numbers ever. I think it's the most covered track ever,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
But all coming from the guy who's like, I can't even remember like writing it. It came to me in a dream, in full, not like, oh, a bit here. It's like the whole thing. And so,
yeah.
and
And
then
so,
he just
mm,
opened it to the world, and then look where we are. So yeah, when you say there's some innate ability, some innate creativity that you want to keep, of course you do.
and so for me, it's like, I'm like just thinking, like, I've just shared my music, my lyrics,
Mm.
right? And I feel like sometimes you got to let it go. Like,
Yeah,
I could,
yeah.
I could go and copyright it, right? And that's like my intellectual property. Sometimes certain things you've just got to surrender.
100%.
And
100%.
and who knows, so maybe somebody watching this will say, you know what, let's, but who knows, it could be that they don't. And I feel like I have to be okay with both, whatever
Mm.
happens. And sometimes some music isn't for you. it's
Yeah.
it's not here to be monetized. It's
Mm.
there to be shared.
100%. It's as soon as you're given that example, the case slash example of Bittersweet Symphony came to my head, where the Verve in Richard Ashcroft, who put the whole song together, had years long battle with the management slash group, the Rolling Stones, because they said, no, you nicked our riff, and
Mm-hmm.
they got all the monetary royalties and benefits from it.
Mm.
I know the Rolling Stones, they were saying it's not us, it's the management. But there's the point, like along the creative process, someone has gone, let's monetize it, let's rinse everything. So now the song doesn't lose impact. Everybody still knows, A knows the
Yeah,
song and B knows the artist, going, okay, it might be the same riff, but who cares? It's still a brilliant song. And I'm so glad they finally got that resolution of like, okay, yeah, I don't think, Richard Ashcroft's ever in it for about, let me get all my royalties back what I'm due. But it's like, it's nice that they've able to iron that out,
Yes,
you know?
and that's kind of happened with a lot of recording artists. George Michael,
Yeah, yeah.
had a massive like long battle with, and then recently, what's her name? Can I forget? Taylor Swift,
Mm.
has now got ownership of all of her like songs.
Yeah, yeah. Ed Sheeran had some long ass battle in court.
Yes, and for me, I find that kind of just shows the current state of the 21st century, the
Yeah,
20th.
yeah. Oh,
Did
yes.
did musicians and artists have these long battles like before the commercialization of music? Um,
I wonder if they were there, but they just quickly went, oh, sod it, who gives a shit? Like, I'm like a reminder of when Noel Gallagher wrote Cigarettes and Alcohol. The opening riff is an exact rip of the intro to Get It On by T-Rex. Literally the same notes. And everyone
Probably, yeah.
told him, you can't do that. It's like, you're ripping off T-Rex. And he went, who gives a shit? Because he said when we release this, and he's like, not when, like, if, like, when we release this on our album, if they want to come sue me, well then. And various people have claimed and tried and all this kind of thing, but it's like, I think at the time he came from the perspective of like, well, I'm just doing this for me. It sounds good. I'm going to stick that in.
And that's I think there's a theme though when artists do something for themselves
Yeah,
because art cannot be owned really.
huh? Exactly. Yeah.
Art is beyond time and it really can't be owned.
Uh, but as you say, it seems like in this era in particular that they are trying to own it.
Yes,
Who buys so and so's catalog? Wasn't it
yes,
like the Beatles catalog got sold to some like Michael Jackson
yes,
was off it? But anyway,
yes,
they're focusing on the ownership part of it.
yes,
Whereas like it was refreshing, as you said, to see Taylor Swift go, no, sod that, I'm going to re-record everything and keep
yes,
this back to and give it back to me.
yes.
Fair play.
And I do have a lot of admiration. I'm not a Swiftie.
Mm,
I do have a lot of admiration for her.
mm.
Uh, and it kind of leads me back to like my playlist and like for me, Sufi music
Yeah.
has always been really, really something that has helped me. Like it's been like a thread. And I probably got introduced to Sufi music by Bollywood music,
All right.
because I grew up on with like I grew up on Bollywood from a very young age. Went to see like Bollywood movies in Tooting, and the cinemas used to like just be packed out. This was before VCRs, and I grew up on the voices of Lata Mangeshkar and Mukesh and Muhammad Rafi,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then in my 20s, I got into Pakistani Sufi music. I got into Abda Parveen and Munni Begum. And in the playlist, I mention Abda Parveen and Kalandar, right? Which is a kind of a very, very famous Sufi ghazal, which has been done by so many different like greats. Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan and Rahat Fateh Ali Khan and her version. And Abda Parveen is kind of like, she's kind of really big in Pakistan. She's big internationally. But when I listen to her, I can dance and listen to Sufi music and other music. And then I go into a different realm. And when
Mm.
I was writing my book, a lot of how I kind of got over writer's block when I was kind of, blocked in, where this book is going to go. I literally danced myself out of writer's block by just dancing.
Wow.
And sometimes when the dancing, there was no music. I was just dancing in the silence.
Wow. Can you share more about that? Was there a song in your head, or was there anything?
Um,
How did it come about?
so this is something I don't know. I wasn't really conscious of it.
Mm,
But my friend, when I was studying social work, I shared a house for 1 year with a dancer. So she's amateur dancer. She was in the music society.
mm,
And she told me recently after I published my book, she goes, but Tanya, I remember you kind of like dancing in your bedroom, like to kind of, when you came from the social work placement and you were like stressed out, that's how you used to cope with your stress. And I was like, really? Really, Claire? Did I really do that? And then I vaguely remembered I used to do this from as a childhood because, again, like with Bollywood and seeing like, Bollywood, like, dancers, and like growing up, my dad was a real fan of dance, Bharatanatyam and classical Indian dance.
mm,
Um, and then kind of growing up with like Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire and, those movies, Hollywood movies. I kind of used to kind of try to do that in my own bedroom, right? And oh, and that for me is like where, and then when I was, when I was studying and used to go out like dancing to clubs and stuff, I then just used to kind of just, that was my way of letting go. That was my way of just, just being free.
mm,
Um,
mm,
and again, I'm not a professional dancer. I kind of dance off beat, but I remember like being in a lot of those student bars and clubs and indie music, and kind of just going into another element. And um, it just, for me, like the dance and the dance floor is just being free. And I mean, I do remember like, having like good times with friends, but there's also a very spiritual element. And so when, I've seen the whirling dervishes in Turkey, this is like in a private gathering. It's very mystical. It's very spiritual. It connects me to me, but it also connects me to God.
wow,
Yeah.
that's a powerful line. There's something more in that. So like, because you do, especially in our culture slash backgrounds where movement is associated with movement and dance and expression is associated with various, goddesses or gods and that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
when they're seen as art forms on stage, interpretations, depictions, and all this kind of thing, dance is key to that. Where you see that um, both the music and the dance combined to create this kind of fervor about it, um, which quickly I think gets you, you get swept up in it, I think.
Yeah, and sadly, in sort of like I think it's not just Muslim circles, it's also Christian circles. There, especially like from the 80s and 90s, there was this thing like music isn't allowed,
Yeah.
dance isn't allowed if you're, amongst like Muslim kind of conversations. And um there were a few years of my life that I kind of stopped dancing and I stopped listening to music. And it then made me, I've studied Islamic studies under a woman scholar.
Mm.
And for my actual like project to look at Islamic law, I actually did a whole research project. Um, is music forbidden in Islam? And
Oh,
that
okay.
really led me to kind of really understand that music is very much in the soul of Islam. Music is very much in the fabric of Islam. And again, like lots of people kind of like, how can she say that? Whereas the actual surah in the Quran means song. Quran literally means that which is recited. So surah in Arabic, similar to shira in Hebrew. Shira means song in Hebrew. Surah, so the Quran is like, there's songs in the Quran. They're just songs, and each song has like has got a name. And listening to the songs and reciting the songs of the Quran is something that literally bonds humanity, whether you are Muslim, Jewish, Christian, Hindu, or even of no faith. Because again, it goes back to like music. I think in most religious traditions, music and song and dance is what connects us to each other and connects us to nature and connects us to God.
Mm. So coming back to what you're saying about there's a time where you didn't dance or listen to music. Was that a
Yeah,
conscious choice, or whether it came from like what
I
your
think
understanding
like
of?
it was like me just kind of trying to reconcile my faith, and
Right.
also kind of I don't think it was for very long. I think it was just a couple of years. It wasn't very long, but I don't think it lasted that long because I kind of kept gravitating back to it.
And I guess,
uh,
as you progressed with the study, you found that actually there is, as you said, music is in the fabric of Islam, for example. And it's
yeah,
like, wow, like, you've been believing a story for, as you said, 1 or 2 years, and yet what you're finding out in your natural research is like, no, it's not something to avoid or to ban or to, abstain yourself from. It's like it should be enjoyed and celebrated for what it is.
yeah, and for me, again, kind of going back to like my playlist, um, there there's a particular song on there. It's called Bulia from the film Adil and Mushkil with
Mm.
Ranbir Kapoor. It's a Bollywood film. And there's a song in there where the character, the central character in the film, that's what kind of he gets like the most plays, and he becomes like, viral, and, just becomes really famous like
Mm.
musician. And the song Bulia is kind of, it's very Sufi orientated because it's talking about, I think he's a Sufi saint from Afghanistan, Kabul, and is literally, for me, that song. Whenever I listen to it, my feet just start tapping, and I find it really hard to stay still. And it's such an inspirational song, and I feel like sometimes, because I am bilingual, I speak English and Urdu. I speak Urdu fluently. Um, I find like Urdu is for me like the language of the heart. And sometimes when I can't express myself in English, I find I express myself. My poetry is much more richer in. I've written a lot of poems in English. I've written a few in Urdu, and when I really, really, really want to say something, I find that I start writing poetry in Urdu more than English. And
Okay.
maybe that's my kind of, because my roots are like from that area of the world. I was
Yeah, and
there.
what one thing that struck me about that bilingual characteristic is like, um, you mentioned Bollywood and those what's known as the golden era, right? Mohammed Rafi,
Yes,
Shankar Jaikishan, Lata Mangeshkar, which
yeah,
my folks generation are
yeah,
particularly into. And as you grow up, you naturally absorb these things that are in and around your home and all the network and this kind of thing. And one thing that always struck me is the depth and richness to everything of the music of that era, the instrumentation, the number of instruments used, how they form the songs, but also when you look into the lyrics, it's
yes,
like they are deep works.
yes,
And yes, they've been popularized by film, and there's always these sort of film for want of a better word, party numbers, you know, the ones that everybody knows, like,
Yeah.
but when you go into, especially I think the 50s up to the 70s,
Yes.
they're real personal soliloquies, monologues, expressions that again carry that universal truth.
Def-
And
Definitely.
especially touching actually on emotions that you don't readily feel. Express, like, you know, heartbreak or grief or hurt or sorrow. Um, I think that's something that just got lost along the way as, you know, as music evolves or tastes evolve or whatever it might be. But when you spoke about the bilingual thing, the reason that picked that up is like they sing it in obviously Hindi mostly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But when you read the subtitles in English,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you put like, oh, that's what they're singing about. Like, wow. And you understand the Hindi, but when it's when you just read it as well, it gives that sort of double impact of like, wow, wow.
And also
Yeah.
back to like language and music, kind of going from the first song that I started with, where I couldn't actually understand what Liz Fraser was singing. For me, music is beyond language.
Yes. Yeah. It's its own language.
It's its own language. So you might not actually understand the Hindi or the English or the French or whatever language it is in, the Arabic, because it touches your soul, it
Yeah.
touches your heart, it touches
Yeah.
your body, that because it's about a beat and a rhythm. And I mean, it's like, if you think about, it's kind of commonsensical. How can music be forbidden when the birds are singing?
Yeah.
The wind has its own sound. The sea has its own sound. And unfortunately, with a lot of, like, religions, this was how, populations were controlled, by banning music, because music is the language of the soul.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that, funny enough, there's not enough of that nowadays, but it's never been in more opportune time, I don't think, especially in recent times, for something like that to come back up again.
And,
To,
and
you know,
yeah, and for me, I think that film Edel Mushkil, because there was a long time I stopped watching Bollywood films. But I remember when that film came out, which was, I can't remember exactly when it came out, but that film kind of was a class of its own, and it got lots of people that weren't into Bollywood film to then go back and watch, Bollywood films. And the music in that is kind of like really rich. I mean, the story is rich in itself, but like the music in that is really rich, and it's also, there was, because kind of what's happening in India and the politics, it was like the films, whoever made that film was trying to revive Urdu again, and Urdu, the language. And what I love about India, because that's where my parents were both born in India, and then my dad's family moved to Pakistan first, and then my mum, when she got married, she joined him in Pakistan. And then I was born in Pakistan, but then when I was one, I came to London, UK. And for me, like, what I love about India is it's not just one language, it's many languages. It's not just one faith, it's many faiths. It's not just one culture, it's many cultures. And the richness and the diversity of India, which I mention a lot in my book because the central character is Indian, is it's so rich. And when things like become like just one and singular, that's when beauty becomes, yeah, I don't know, is the word corrupted? I don't know if that's the right word. It kind of loses its beauty when things become like singular and just about one language or one faith or one culture, because we're not. We're many, aren't we? We're diverse. We're rich. We're so many different languages and faiths and cultures. You know.
Yeah. It comes back to, I think, what you were saying before, like the music gets individualized because it's you give it its own meaning of what it means to you, and that'd be completely different to what somebody else does. I think when it's dictated down like that, or almost like, so you mentioned like if beauty diminishes, I also feel there's today a lot of weaponizing, twisting it to fit its own agenda, for
Mm-hmm.
example.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there is opportunity at the moment for, I've always said in these shows constantly that, like, it's no coincidence if you go back from the 50s up to the 90s, especially in England, you could
Mm-hmm.
probably name a band where there's a cultural movement behind them.
Mm-hmm.
So the Beatles, Queen, Oasis,
Mm-hmm.
the Stones,
Mm-hmm.
Black Sabbath, the Sex Pistols,
Mm-hmm.
all were reflections of a society and a culture that it was the bedrock, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've had great bands since, like Coldplay,
Mm-hmm.
who've been successful, and at the same time, have they driven a cultural movement? I'm not so sure. I'm not then here to go ranking it like in leagues and that, but I think there's just, with the times that we are in terms of where people are in their lives, you know, real disillusionment with politics, real disillusionment with identity, personal identity. I think it's crying out loud for a, and I say band in particular because we're humans subscribe to, we're tribalism. We like
Mm-hmm.
groups. So when there's a band that says, it's like, wow, that, you know, everybody knows on this show I'm a massive Oasis fan, and you see that from, like, so around now was when their tour started last year, when they went around the world, and the stories that came out at the time and even now all spoke of, we weren't there just for the music. Of course we would, like, you know, but it's the range of people you saw there. It didn't matter what age, color, gender, like anything. You were all there for the same reason. The unity was so profound. Like a stranger standing next to you became your best mate. You were buying each other drinks. You were singing the
Yeah.
songs. You were sharing stories. It's incredible. And I think there's a real opportunity for a movement or that to come again. But, you know, who's going to take the mantle?
Also, I feel like with what's happening with technology
Yeah,
and
yeah,
producing,
yeah,
it's just so much more different than it was in the time of, you know, the 90s. And, you know, because my son is in that industry, the
yes,
performing arts, and it's so much more kind of competitive, and people are using social media to just kind of become like known and viral. And for me, I always kind of think of, you know, there are some musicians and some songwriters and singers that actually only get known after they've passed away. And I'm kind of thinking of Eva Cassidy.
mm,
She was discovered after she passed away. And what, for me, she's like one of like the best singers ever. You listen to her rendition of Somewhere Over the Rainbow, it's like, I don't think anybody has sung Somewhere, you know, over the rainbow like her, not even Judy Garland. Um and also I think now with politics and identity and music, I mean, I grew up with listening to Billy Bragg and, you know, Paul Weller and, you know, the Style Council. And I used to listen to a lot of what, you know, now people would call political music, very left-wing music. And I feel like a lot of that also is that there is a crisis when it comes to left wing, right wing. There's a crisis in politics. It's not just a crisis of identity, political parties swapping each other's clothes, Um, and like I think people like Billy Bragg haven't lost their values. Um, Billy Bragg is still Billy Bragg, and I still love him. But it's I don't know. That again, I think maybe it's because of the commercialization of music that you you know maybe somebody who's maybe listening to this might get inspired and like form that band. But also, I think also how nowadays in the world of social media, how friendships are like tested. I do know of young people that are like forming bands. I, you know, I do like listening to up and coming music, but you know, it takes commitment. It takes a really strong friendship, and we know about lots of bands, that just kind of they hated each other after like touring and playing and and
Yep.
it's not easy. I think that world of music and bands and is very much glamorized, like a lot of things like entrepreneurship is very much glamorized, and I think you need to be a certain kind of person, have a certain kind of friendship, and also be true as an artist to survive. Yeah. It's not easy.
No, you make a point about technology advancing so much nowadays, where like many of our bands that we know and enjoy from past eras became a band with the idea of like, we want to be the biggest band in the world. And that
Hmm.
came with the trappings of being successful, of selling loads of records, making loads of money, this kind of thing. Um, and they happen to catch a movement, catch, the times in a zeitgeist. And, nowadays we're making documentaries about them still, and it all came from, it's funny when you look at all those band stories, there's nothing like, it all seems just ordinary. Two friends met one day. Like, was
Yes.
it Paul went to see John's band, just checked it out, and it's like they just got talking, and then off they went, right? You know, Noel was a roadie for a band, and Liam was in a band himself, and then Noel went, "I was going to have a laugh, go check out his rehearsals,"
Mhm.
and then he didn't even ask to join. Liam went, "Right, hey, you write songs in the mid, like in your spare time, like just come along and jam," and that started, and then Queen with Bohemian Rhapsody, the film. um, they um, Brian May and the rest of the band fired their singer and they're looking for another one. Then Freddie Mercury says, "Well, I'll do it." It's just simple. Like there's nothing extraordinary
I,
about them. And then when they went on and on, extraordinary.
and I think I do have hope though. I feel like even with AI and social media and technology, because at the end of the day, as human beings, we still want to listen to something that's created. I mean, I
By
think AI
humans.
I
Mm,
think AI can help, but like
yeah.
from the human soul and have that human soul imprint. And
Yes.
like sometimes that's why sometimes I just actually just like listening to the human voice singing without any music.
Mm,
Um, and maybe that's because I kind of also come from an Urdu speaking background where we have poetry sittings where, people just come and they just sing without any music. They just sing their poetry. And that kind of like happens in a lot of different cultures where you just sing without any music.
yeah.
Um, and people are like just jamming. And I think sometimes again without having to monetize, just jamming together, just kind of having somebody that's maybe learning guitar and
Hmm.
my songs and I kind of just want to just get, and that's really how music is. That's what I understand is kind of great music kind of comes when people are just experimenting, just
Yeah.
play.
Yeah. 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 I speak from experience there because, you described a little bit of my band days. And that was just me as a teenager learning the guitar with my friends in a live band setting, and it was just, as you said, a laugh. You know,
Yeah, and you don't. I think if you think about all the great bands, they kind of did it in the beginning
Exactly.
as a laugh. They didn't do it to become Oasis or the Beatles or whoever. They did it because
Yeah.
it was just friends, a group of friends coming, jamming, just for a laugh. And I think nowadays sometimes some young people kind of get together because they just kind of want to just be successful. But success, I think most of the time doesn't come because you want to be successful.
Very
Usually,
true. Very true. And with those bands that you mentioned and beyond, it's like you know, from listening to their stories and seeing them depicted on film or documentaries, like it, as with anything in life, the universe gave an opportunity, whether it's a chance meeting or, a record producer happened to hear them on something or whatever it might be. And then, that's when it turned into like, oh, hang on, we can make something of this, whether you thought about it in the first place or not. There's clearly something there. I think the challenge in today is like, if you had that notion or idea or ambition, that's all well and good, it's all cool, but there's, as you said, it feels oversaturated everywhere, like to get your music heard or get your music published or get
yeah.
your music whatever.
And the thing is, I'm just going to give Ray's example because I've like been following her story.
Yeah.
For her to be this successful, it was a lot of sacrifice. It was a lot of failures. It was a lot of no's. It was a lot of rejections. It was a lot of
Yes.
like people trying to put her into a different box. And she was like, no, I want to sing jazz. I want to sing blues.
Yes.
And like she stuck to her guns. And like, we can talk about commercialization till the cows come home. That doesn't necessarily mean that you can't be successful on your own terms, but
100%.
you've got to have a team around you. You have to have people that believe in you. You have to have family and friends that support you. It's not like just you that having a dream. It's like, we can, it's like having a business. It's like having a marriage. It's like having a musical career. It's like having a right to whatever. There is going to be like sacrifices that you make, but it's about, there's going to be so many no's before there are yeses.
For sure. I
And
say
enjoy
it. Go on.
enjoy the journey on the way. I think sometimes we are so like for me, it still feels really surreal to say that I'm an international best-selling author. For me, it's still surreal because it was like my lifelong dream ever since I was a teenager to have some of my poetry is in that book. And yes, it's part memoir, part fiction, but like for me, it was like a lifelong dream. Having said that, there were sacrifices I made to, to get that book out there. And there was a lot of self-belief that I had to have to, and nothing is easy. It might look easy, but nothing is easy.
Yeah. And as you said, that the outcome shouldn't dissuade the journey, like especially when it comes to expression, right? As we've touched upon, that music, art, dance, it's all creativity, it's all expression. And as you said, it's something that AI cannot replicate, whatever level it gets to. It could do a great mimicry job, a great impression, but it won't
I
replace a human.
I did not use AI one bit for my book. Like not
No,
one
yeah.
bit did I, look at ChatGPT or Claude or whoever, right? It was like totally, some of them are like my life experiences that I like talk about, and some of it was pure channeling of this character Tamara. She kind of like, I don't know, it just felt like, somebody possessed me and telling me exactly what to write. This is my timeline. This is how, and then when I used to write something of myself, she'd say, no, take that out. You haven't done it right. And it literally, now I understand when artists talk about like being possessed. I was listening to, or watching Madonna's interview with Graham Norton on BBC iPlayer. And like Graham asks a couple of, like questions about confessions of, confessions too, and she
Yeah.
goes, my soul. And he goes, well, was it streams of consciousness? And this is literally what my editor used to say about like when she was editing my book, Matani, this is like streams of consciousness. It's very hard to edit this. And I was like, literally, it was like streams of consciousness just coming out of me about dancing with the shadows and dancing with the light. And again, for me, it's like AI can kind of like help you like with your own ideas, and maybe like with editing and kind of, you know, proofreading and stuff like that. I'm not totally against AI, but it can't give you that content that comes from the soul.
Well, I can't say any further than that. I think that's a great way to close the conversation. I know we could go on and on, but I think that was such a natural ending to say, look, it can't replace that. And Tanya, look, so much. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been a wonderful conversation, which I know can carry on and on. Before we go, you're welcome to share like where people can find you, anything you go currently working on, links, etc., etc. Go for it.
Right now, both of my webs, you can find me on dancingwithdarknessbook.com. Loads of free resources there. You can find me on Facebook, Taniya Hussain. You can also find me on Substack. I think it's called Reflective Space at Taniya Hussain. And yeah, but I think the best way for you to understand who I am and what I do and how I do it, just go and buy my book. It's on Amazon, called Dancing with Darkness. That's the best place to start.
Awesome. All those links will be in the description or area wherever you're watching or listening to this. So Tanya, thank you again so much for joining the show, and for you guys for watching and listening wherever you are on this platform, whichever you're on. If you'd like to join the show, there's also a link in the description or below to connect with me and get your slot booked in on the show. You've seen the vibe of the show. As today, it is a free-ranging conversation about music and moments in your life, how they've interspersed. We've all got stories. We've heard Tanya's brilliant stories and insights today. Go check her out. She does some really good stuff in her space. So until the next one, thank you all for joining, and feel supersonic. Thank you so much for checking out this episode of Soundtrack of Your Life. I hope you enjoyed it. Please do like and share this episode around. Subscribe to the channel for further shows coming up. Comment with your thoughts below and use the sign up link to get yourself on the show as well. I'd love to have you on. Feel supersonic.